Eddie Bauer, that name probably rings a bell, right? Maybe you've even got one of their classic flannels tucked away somewhere. But think about it. When was the last time you actually saw an Eddie Bauer store? Yeah, there's a pretty big reason for that. We're going to dig into the collapse of this absolute giant and what it tells us about where shopping is headed. 106. Let that sink in for a second. 106 years. We're talking more than a century of building this reputation for classic American outdoor gear. I mean, that's the definition of a legacy brand. And now, poof, that century-old legacy, it's facing a total shutdown. All 200 plus of their stores, every single one across North America, gone. You go from 106 years in business to literally 0 physical stores. The big question is, how in the world does that happen? Okay, so to really get this, we've got to face a kind of a bleak reality here. I mean, we've all seen it, right? Those empty storefronts on the mall, the everything must go signs on brands we literally grew up with. Eddie Bauer's story, well, it's not some one-off thing. It's just the latest and maybe one of the saddest chapters in this much bigger, kind of unsettling story happening to retail. It really boils down to one simple, brutal truth, and our source material puts it perfectly. The retail marketplace has no nostalgia. Think about that. Just because your brand was a cultural icon, well, that doesn't mean a thing today. Your history, as it turns out, just doesn't pay the bills. But here's the thing. This wasn't some sudden overnight collapse. The truth is, Eddie Bauer has been kind of teetering on the edge for decades. This final shutdown, it's really just the end of a very long, very bumpy road. And when you look at the timeline, you see this really troubling pattern. First, they go bankrupt back in 2003. Okay, they relaunched in 2005, only to go bankrupt again just 4 years later. Crazy, right? They got bailed out that time, but now, this is strike 3. This company has been on shaky ground financially for more than 20 years. So, okay, we get it. They were struggling with money, but why? What was the actual disease here, not just the symptoms? Well, retail experts have a pretty clear diagnosis, and it really comes down to 3 major problems. Problem number 1, the stores themselves. The experience of actually walking into one was just broken. One expert put it bluntly, saying the stores were a mess. They were crammed full of product, hard to shop in, and just uninspiring. I mean, you've got these cool, exciting brands out there creating amazing experiences in their stores, and Eddie Bauer just wasn't giving anyone a good reason to even bother walking in. Then there's the second issue. Who owned them? An expert made a great point that Eddie Bauer basically became expendable. Why? Because it was just one little piece of a giant corporate puzzle. You know, one of those huge parent companies that owns a ton of different brands. And when your brand is just a line item on a spreadsheet, it kind of loses its soul. It gets pushed to the side. It's not the top priority anymore. And this right here, this is probably the final nail in the coffin. A retail consultant named Mohammed Almer said the ownership model wasn't about taking care of the brand. He called it financial arbitrage masquerading as brand stewardship. So what does that mean in plain English? It means they were more interested in just squeezing every last penny out of the brand's name instead of actually investing in its future. They were basically cashing in on its slow, painful death. Look, as sad as this whole story is, Eddie Bauer is not alone, not by a long shot. The brand is really just the latest name to be carved onto a headstone in what people are calling the retail graveyard. Just take a look at this list. Lord & Taylor, founded before the Civil War. Modell's Sporting Goods, a 131-year-old icon. Steinmart, Joann Fabrics, Rite Aid. The list goes on. These weren't just shops, you know? They were institutions. When you see them all lined up like this, it's clear this is a massive shift, a real earthquake in retail, not just a couple of unlucky stores. So all of this, it brings up a really big and, honestly, a super important question. If a brand that's been around for 106 years can just disappear from our streets, what does it even mean to be a brand anymore? And yeah, the answer, it's getting complicated. And this is maybe the biggest takeaway from this whole thing. We're seeing the rise of what you might call the ghost brand. Yeah, Eddie Bauer's stores are closing down, but the name isn't actually dying. It's going to live on, online, in wholesale deals through licensing. The brand is changing from a place you can actually go to into just a logo you see on a product. It's becoming a financial asset, not a real physical destination. Which leaves us with one last question to chew on. When a brand you could actually touch and feel in a store becomes just a name you click on a website, what do we really lose? Is it just a building, or is it something more, like a piece of our community, a piece of our shared culture? And that, I think, is the real story hiding behind the fall of Eddie Bauer.